usually the italicized, is that correct? It's like the italicized are the ones that.
No, so italics, were ones that were requested by like
A request.
to be added.
So they would have been, you're right, they would have been added.
Add-ons that are
Um,
being added.
Welcome to the school board meeting. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
right up front. Go ahead.
Our Times Union Star right there.
So we're gonna start with Stephanie's gonna do a budget presentation. It kind of goes through some of the things we've already seen. Focus on some changes.
Okay, so right now we're on the third draft of the budget. Not much has changed from the second draft to the third draft. Again, most of these lines are rolled over from the previous year, scrutinized, looking back at previous expenses, seeing how we ended up in those 3 years to base our expenses this year, for the next year, I'm sorry. Those non-budgeted expenses were added in for this current school year. There was administrator and supervisor requested items that were considered to be put into this budget. There was reductions made from Board of Ed and admin discussions here in audit and finance. And then we have more accurate estimates for a lot of our major items, which, take up a big part of our budget. Salary and benefits take up about 75 to 80% of the budget. For us.
So if I could just add, because I think it's important to know, we will be making a change to the budget calendar, which will be the March 20th meeting. And the reason that we're making that change is we don't yet have the finalized health insurance and pharmacy figures, which is a huge bulk of our increase. Right now, we're looking at a 16% increase on health insurance from last year to this year, and even a small fluctuation either way, which could go either way, will have a huge impact. We also are finalizing some special education concerns. I just got word today of a higher impact student that has moved into the district. So all those things every week we revise and go through that. And, Stephanie, Jody, and myself will work together to find how much that'll change that line and anticipate being about that. Any questions on this?
So our budget's a budget as of Tuesday. We're looking at a 7.38% increase. That is a very large increase, but a lot of that is to debt service. That debt service is actually being offset in our revenues.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about what the debt service means?
So the debt service is to pay for our capital projects. We have a new capital project that's coming on the books that we're starting this spring, summer. So we have to take out debt for that, and that's going to increase our debt service. But again, it's being offset in revenue. So that's through an intra-fund transfer and also an increase to our tax cap.
Any questions on this?
Capitalized
I'm sorry, the interfund transfer
It's
is,
capitalized interest
it's
on the debt.
interest.
Capitalized interest on the debt. No, the capitalized interest comes back to us. So looking at our historical budget, you can see the various increases. So these are really our major budget items. Again, salary benefits, about 75% of our budget. You can see our two bargaining agreements. We have the CSEA, looking at a 3.25% increase in their salaries for next year. And then our teachers union, looking at a 4.5 increase of step. Our health insurance premiums, as Dr. Maloney already mentioned, for our Highmark plan, we're looking at a 60% increase. For our RX that goes with that Highmark plan, we're looking at 8.7% increase. And CDPHB, 13.55% increase right now. These are really on trend, unfortunately. Health insurance is just skyrocketing. I know a lot of districts in other consortiums, and they're seeing same kind of increases. So we're definitely not alone in this boat, seeing these kind of increases. Another big piece, of course, transportation, O&M needs. We're obligated to transport our students. Currently, we have 2 runs that we contract out. We're hoping to bring those in, because each of those runs costs over $100,000 to contract out. So we're hoping to bring those in with our own drivers. So, these came from last board meetings. These were requested budget items, that came from our administration and supervisors. You can see these items that were requested to be added into the 2025-26 budget. The items in red have been removed. They have not made it into this third draft budget. The items in black are still in the budget.
So I do want to say, I think having for those things, I think they are very important. Unfortunately, with the current financial situation that we're in, I don't think we can augment our budget to accommodate those, but I think they're legitimate requests. Stephanie, did you want to talk about the phasing of the upgraded Chromebooks? And this is interesting because we went 1-to-1 very quickly due to COVID. Our phase-in, that timeline got really impacted. However, when you have that, you also have the replacement that gets a little bit more chunked together, I guess, for lack of a better term. So we're now finding that some of those Chromebooks that we purchased with COVID money to have kids go 1-to-1 now need to be recycled.
Yeah, so we have a replacement.
Part of the replacements.
Yeah. Anything else on this one? So from last budget discussion for the second draft of the budget to the third draft of the budget, this is what the Board of Education has decided to remove from the budget. We have a 0.33 FT for language teacher. This is to be phasing out of our Russian program. The elementary morning kickball program that started with COVID funds. 1 custodial worker. We do have a retirement in April that will not be replaced. Our Questar in-house professional development for 20 days a year. Our Questar in-house tech assistant 3 days a week. And our athletic huddle program. And that gives us a savings of about $227,000.
So if I could just make 2 notes, just because it won't show up on here. The athletic huddle program, we went to that. It was certainly a really great feature. It's the camera that follows the kids around. It's absolutely wonderful. I think we would likely just go back to the normal camera that we had, which was not as fancy, but the cost for the whole program, if I'm remembering correctly, was about $17,000. So it was a pretty significant piece for that small thing. The other piece I wanted to mention to you is phasing out of Russian. Part of that phasing out of Russian is because our Russian teacher actually became a stay-at-home mom. So it was partially financial, but also because there's not a lot of people that teach Russian and can't offer it if you don't have somebody that's able to teach Russian. So we would have loved, I would have loved to have kept multiple languages over time. That is a real clear high need shortage area. Obviously. Does anybody have any questions on this? This one?
So here's just a high level budget overview. You can see how big that benefits piece is going up about $786,000, and that's really due to the health insurance. So our state aid highlights, we are getting additional 5.58% foundation aid, which is great. That's really due to those changes that Mike Rose just went over with us, the changes in the poverty data, and also reduced price lunch data with economically disadvantaged data. So we actually look more disadvantaged than state eyes, which is talking about our state, our foundation.
It also is an indicator of the needs of our students as well. We're seeing it in the classroom that the needs are greater as well. So although that's a quantitative number, we've known this for a little bit of time. Yes,
That was part of
that was part of her plan. Right now, it's actually very interesting. They're really dancing around it, but right now the language hearing is that it's going to be a quote unquote bell to bell ban. But what many people are advocating for is for local control, and what that would mean. Yep, everybody agrees it should be after an instructional time. That's really clear, but not to force districts into, for example, putting it in pouches or purchasing some kind of device or managing it that type of way, and allowing individual schools to say, hey, we have lockers. How about the kids put them in their locker or they put back or whatnot? So we're kind of waiting because if she does do just a ban, we'll have to figure out what that means.
Our policies.
Yes. Yeah. And unless her language is different. And then we would just have to have internal conversations, and schools feel very, very differently about this. Some people have a ban. It should not be out at any point. Some schools feel that during lunch or non-academic times. So depending on what she says, that will kind of change that dynamic. There's a couple schools that thought on that. You know, we want kids to be distraction free, no question about it. But there also is some value to consider teaching the kids how to use it appropriately and how to manage it because they will become adults where they won't be told to put it away. And are you able to participate, you know, like career and college ready and manage that? So those will be those internal conversations that will continue to have.
Where phones from?
I'm sure they get them on there somehow, but I don't think it's open during. Is there any kids here? It can't be open, right? After I know after school you can,
My son says they keep his service in the bathroom, the kids sleep in the bathroom.
In the bathroom.
but that's not our Wi-Fi.
Right. Is
That's
that
regular.
just service?
I think that's
Service.
regular. I think so.
He's like, the kids are always asking to go to the bathroom.
Oh, I thought they just had to go. Does anybody have any questions?
So our tax cap for next year, based on this formula, is 3.55%, and that's an increase of about $535,000. And we have the inflation factor of 2%, which is the highest in law. These are some other pieces of revenue. Wine skill enrollment has dropped in the last few years. However, we do have 4 students coming next year, which is great.
That's actually the highest it's been in the last couple of years. So I'm really excited about that. So 4 enrolling freshmen, and I talked to this person today, and she said that there might be a chance that, especially a family or two, might decide.
Parents paying tuition has actually increased, so we've got some parents who choose to send their students here from our neighboring districts. They pay us tuition. Our interest revenue is really significant this year and last year, but that's really dependent on that economy that's us and for cheap time. And then of course we have to consider our service models.
If I can just mention one thing, Stephanie and I had talked about this. Our current budget that you've been presented does not encumber the grants, the federal grants that Mike Lawson talked about. Some districts are taking a really conservative approach and saying, hey, we get, I'll use a round number, $1,000 in those grants. I'm not sure what's going on with the federal government. I'm going to put them in our general fund just in case. We have chosen not to do that based on advice from people like Mike, believing that it's in law. But just in case you hear other people who know, we have not chosen to do that. However, the money is significant. I mean, it's a good amount of money that
Several.
so it's impactful if for some reason that were to.
So here's some high level revenue overview. CRCD is going up as much as foundation is going up, and that's because we're actually seeing excess costing of approximately $100,000. And those are our high costs that we sell to BOCES or our private placements. We have 2 of them going this year. So sure, so that's Medicaid reimbursement. We're able to bill Medicaid for some services that our students with IEPs have. And we have a great, actually Carol in our office, who's our payroll clerk, actually handles our Medicaid reimbursement, and it's on, when I first got here, we were getting maybe $10,000 Medicaid revenue. She is top notch, and on top of it, you can see well over $10,000.
So I mean, that does take a lot of work. We have to make sure that the person that's administering the service, I'll give speech for example, that's a big one, that they're properly licensed and they're not in default on their student loans. There's like a series of things that you have to make sure, but that is a revenue that we get. So maximizing it is important. Some schools pay for services, we do it.
So our current budget gap as it stands is $1.36 million based on going to the tax cap of that 3.55%. The gap, if we use $1 million of fund balance, would be a little over $360,000. No, this year we've appropriated about 1.3.
The past, though, we don't have.
Between fund balance and reserves about 800,000
Okay, thank
more
you. You said we appropriated budget or million?
to balance the budget this year. So these are just some things we have to consider for the budget process. Before we budget.
So I know one of the areas that comes up quite often is STEM, tech value, so just one of the things that go along with that. We don't currently have a cap on most of those things. We do have a cap on STEM, which was one student per year going to STEM in school. We did put provision on Tech Valley. We're not actively advertising it, but if a family felt strong, there's some legacy, like my brother and my sister went, but we don't currently transport those students because that was an additional cost. And rather, CTE is closer by. One of the things that Mike Ross talked to the board about is even if there was a deliberate decision to minimize the number of students going to that program, we pay that on a 5-year average, even though students go for either 2 or 1. It's kind of like stretching it out with the mortgage, so that the payment is a little bit more level, and you don't get these huge fluctuations due to the changes. So that's a really tough one because you do get aid on it. So maybe you get a small savings, but you would also lose out on the revenue side too. So just something to think about. Some programs are more than others. But I would say in particular, the CTE programs and the New Vision programs are having outstanding outcomes. I don't know so much about STEM because we haven't had a child graduate, but I do know, I think our oldest student there, I think is a junior, and I just got a report the other day, he's like taking 60th college credit class. So he appears to be having success, but won't certainly know
So no part there's deducts in that because the salary, it's mostly salary driven. So no, it's not. It gets deducted. It gets deducts out of it, so it's not a straight basis income.
While she's looking for that, I can tell you this. This is one of the things that when I went to meet with the assemblymen and the senators, we talked a lot about. There's currently a cap where you only get aid on the first $30,000 of these folks, their salaries. Well, that was in 1990 when the median salary of a teacher was $30,000. Now the median salary, particularly for this really skilled, like heavy equipment, welding, you have to pay a prevailing rate. So we're really not recouping aid on it that we probably should be at the same rate as some other things. There's a lot of push to reimburse districts because the governor wants kids career and college ready, and folks is producing the labor for the technologies of now and the future. So in order to continue to allow districts like ours to continue to put kids in there, they've really got to make that a little bit more cost effective for us by changing that.
Do we know what the net cost to the district is?
Let me ask you a different way. You're talking about like our total bill for everybody that we get?
After 8.
After
Okay,
the net.
I mean, I might have to get back to you on that. I can tell you how much that bill that comes through, but I might have to figure out the date. Can find out. Thank you. I think I can, but
So they're in
Stephanie
the
can.
40s.
I know that I think it's $750,000 or something, but that's the bill. I don't know what the aid. I don't know what the aid.
That was like
is.
705,000, but I don't.
So you said it's somewhere around 40.
The aid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so 40%.
So Tech Valley's like 41%, it looks like.
They're all a little bit different. Some
Yeah, they're all
programs are-
different.
and some programs are more expensive than others too. So,
CT 46%.
but you can see, that's one of the challenges. So hopefully,
balance. So this would be the gap, if we appropriated that $1 million in fund balance and also, went at various tax increases, you can see what the gap would be.
Sorry, what's?
Right now it's 3.55. Yep.
Oh,
Yes, these would be all over gap.
so to get reasonably to be fine.
Yeah. Yep, so you can see we appropriated the over $1 million in fund balance, $300 in reserves balance budget. Right now we're projecting to use approximately 400,000 to another fund balance update, in our office this week. But once you start using fund balance and depending on it, unless you get some sort of revenue in, or cut stuff, you know, your expenses go down, you're gonna keep depending on it.
So
So that's,
fine fund balance.
so that's kind of our,
I consider
that's our bank account, I would say, I would call it like our bank account.
Your check.
So some of it is, appropriated, so appropriated is that $1 million. Fund, there's also reserves, those can only be used for specific reasons. If you actually, yep, here we go. So that's our appropriated or assigned fund balance. That's what we had as of the end of last school year. Reserves, they have to be used for specific items. It includes $800,000 in capital reserve, which we use to offset tax impacts for future capital projects. Then we have our unreserved fund balance, and that's kind of like our, I would call a rainy day fund. That doesn't really, there's no stipulations tied to that. It's not like reserves where, you know, if it's capital reserve, you have to use for capital projects. That's kind of our rainy day fund. We had tapped into that this year, because a lot of the,
But that's 300,000 percent right off this slide.
no, we didn't tap, it's not, reserve, this is different.
Okay, that's what.
Yeah. So we tapped into the unreserved fund balance for all those, remember, with the tank project, we tapped into some of that unreserved fund balance.
The assigned
and we're
fund
looking-
balance is not,
That's actually what's to balance the actual budget. No, we would not necessarily use it. That's the 400,000 we're projecting that we're, but it's, you know, updated every
Yeah,
few weeks.
theoretically,
Yeah,
leaving the other side.
yes,
does that make, that's a big piece. And the reasons why that they allow us to have that is because there's 3 changes. We have student enrollment, we have wastewater treatment plan issue, you know, those kind of things where you wouldn't want to have to cut programming mid-year to be able to accommodate a change in program.
So what happens if we don't use single assigned fund balance? Where does that?
you can, so
Rules
if we
to
were,
next year.
yeah, so if we were saying that
And assigned states.
it would still be
and
assigned if
assigned.
you chose to use about $100,000 to offset. And then, so if you use, okay, say we use 400,000, it drops down to 700,000. And you wanna use $1 million, then we're gonna take another 300 out of that one to get up to the other two.
So we don't know where we're at this year.
No,
Do you have any total?
nope, that's right,
That's
so
one slide.
400,000.
So,
Right now as it stands, but we had some things come up, you'll see, there's 2 things on actually tonight's agenda, emergency, items.
So we plan on using $1 million, we use $400,000.
I mean, you could go either way, like we hope, like, for example, I'm gonna talk about, we're gonna be hiring a special education teacher. We hope to get some breakage on that, but it could go either way too. Could hire somebody that is more expensive than you currently have, depending on. So those are the kind of ebbs and flows that happen throughout the year that are
so
less predictable.
if we're correct, with 7, there's about 700,000. And we choose to use $1 million. The unreserved will get down to 1 million. That,
Does that make sense, everybody? What did you guys think of, like, loss? Was that helpful?
yes,
It's very complex. For those of you who weren't here, Mike Loss, who works for State Aid Planning at Quester, which is a service that we subscribe to, made a presentation to the board. We went through some big picture items with financial picture of New York State and some of the things that are happening. We went through comprehensively the changes in the state formula and how it impacted our district and the factors, and was able to explain to us like student poverty counts and how that's changed over time and how that looks on a regional level. We did put this presentation online so that everybody could see it.
Okay. So that brings us to approval of minutes from last meeting. Leah? Yeah? All in favor? Motion carries.
Yes, a few things I just wanted to mention. Sheila, are you going to talk about graduation? Probably not, right? Okay. Rhea, are you going to talk about graduation?
No.
Okay. So we. So one of the things that we've had post-COVID is the graduation being outside. And we really kind of have a split group of kids. It's about 65-35 of about the kids wanting it inside and outside. What makes it a little bit different this year is the capital project. We won't have our available space due to breaking ground and that kind of thing. So Mr. Rizzo and Mrs. Norton and myself met again with the kids today, and they feel it would be best. They're going to give us their final answer tomorrow, but they feel it would be best for it to be inside. The one thing that we caution them, because you as board members will absolutely hear this, is the number of tickets the kids get are absolutely much smaller. Whereas outside there was no limitation; they could have as many as they want. And again, we want to support the kids. We want it to be their ceremony, but we wanted to make it really clear to them that this is, I don't want to say the consequence, but this is one of the unintended pieces. Now we'll try to accommodate the best we can, set up a camera at the gym, and we'll try to do all those kind of things. But the auditorium does have a limited capacity, so I wanted you to be aware of that. But to my knowledge, unless something drastically changes, this is what the kids want.
Where would they do it? Outside, it would be our football field.
They have two choices. They do it adjacent to the football field, angling like towards where they looked before, but it's hard for me to draw. But it would be adjacent to it to be the practice field, or they could do it on the Route 2 field. So they could have it if they wanted it, which they don't. We gave them all the options. We just wanted them to be really well aware.
Was there a question about a time change as well, like something tonight for indoor? Did I read that somewhere?
I'm sure somebody said it, but again, this was part of what the kids said. The 10 or 11 o'clock time, whatever it is part of the teacher day. And they felt very strongly that they wanted their teachers, faculty, and staff to be there. So by keeping it at that time, that ensures that they'll be there. Where a lot of people live far away and they likely didn't come back for an exam. So unless something drastically changes, that was a priority. But anybody have any questions on that? I'll probably have a final answer like really soon, and then I'm confident Mr. Rizzo put something out, some more specific information. But it is on the calendar for that Friday
At 11 o'clock.
at 11. Thank you. I
How
wanted to
many
make sure.
people could be fit to the auditorium? We have to-
I do. I can look back at what we did pre-COVID. We'll have that.
I'm just curious, like how many tickets average that breakdown? Is it like each ticket's 2 and your parents are the only
No,
ones
no,
that
no.
come,
No, it's more than that. It's probably going to end up being around 4 or 5 at least. It just gets a little tricky because the kids are on the stage, the risers are on the front. That's where the people sing and they get the special awards. But the faculty sits in the audience, which is what the kids want. But again, that takes up some of the space.
So would the teachers have to like reserve their spots that way?
Yep. So you
Kids that
maximize.
have-
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's going to be, last year we got to go and it wasn't a big deal, your neighbor and whatnot, so I just wanted to make that clear, but, we're here for kids, we do what the kids want, and I think there's gonna be some people that are unhappy about it, can't please everyone, but.
If it's outside and it's at the adjacent field, how does that look? Like, is it just chairs because you won't have bleachers?
We wouldn't have the big bleachers, but we bring over the smaller bleachers to the bottom, but I don't think they're doing that anyway, but
No,
I,
because I was just trying to.
Yeah.
How was that looking?
yeah, it would look a little different, no question about it, for sure. Any questions on that? Okay. Kayla, you talking about kids going to the States? Okay, I won't do that. Okay, hiring, I just mentioned special ed. We still have some hires. Rachel Bellini, who's with us over here, is transitioning to a different position. She's currently in the special education class. So we're currently hiring her, but we have some great news. I hope to have a recommendation for you on the next board agenda, which is great. We're hearing a new graduate right out of college. I think she's still in college right this minute, which is totally great. So we're happy to do that. The musicals upcoming this week, I'm sure we're going to talk about it. Lobbying. One of the things that my job is going and making sure the people in our government know the schools and teaching advocates specifically for our district. And I do want to mention publicly a handful of things that we did advocate for. Some I've already touched upon. One was the ACAP that will greatly help us and allow us to continue to encourage those CTE revisions programs to be able to continue that pipeline more. So changing that ACAP is going to be critically important. That's been asked for about 2 years. I'm not super duper hopeful, but because the Micron chip fab and really needing those type of that type of worker, I think there might be some push because as schools start to pull back from the basic services, there's going to be less kids that have those specific skills. The other thing was the waiver, the 211 waiver that allows us to hire public service professionals that are retired to come back and earn over $35,000. And we do currently have one in a pretty difficult position, which is English as a new language. And what will end up happening is they don't extend that waiver that allows that person to work for beyond $35,000. They just won't be able to do it. So we have one, but like my neighbor, East Greenbush, they have 100 people that are in that boat. So there's a serious problem. Their state is right to be concerned. Like if we keep giving you the waiver, what's the incentive to replace people? That's a legit question. And it would be growing your own, trying to get kids to go into education, encouraging people to have internships, do some unique things that way. But right now, either way, the pipeline's not there. So next year we need a body to teach those kids in those subject areas. So, and that's a big issue for a lot of school districts. The other one are these electric buses. By 2027, we are no longer able to purchase a diesel, propane, or a gas bus. In our area, we are currently undergoing an energy study where they're going to look at things that we would need. It's a whole, I don't think it's NYSERD, I can't think of the name of it, but they work with us. Is it NYSERD?
Yeah.
Just to figure out capacity, what we would need to do those kind of things. But we're not in a place remotely where we could handle that. There's no electric chargers. I don't think the bus can hold the charge long enough to do long routes and things like that. So we have not gotten on board to buy those buses. But something's going to have to change. You cannot allow to purchase that type of bus anymore. So there's a lot of energy around that. I will say it's a pet peeve of some very, you mentioned New York State Assembly and Senate people. They feel really strongly about it. And my take would be put it in some cities that have flat areas that we need to be a little bit more sustainable. There might be the technology to they are in downstate. For sure. So, but that would be the place to start where I think we can actually, I think the intention's great. I think who doesn't want to be there? Who doesn't want those things? But it's not very popular with the public, and we're not really in a place where cell phones I already spoke to, and there is an ask for SRO funding to make OCs aidable. We're in a position where most schools in New York State have at least one SRO. The public wants it, the public's demanding it. That seems to be just something that is, I don't think it's even negotiable at this point. We're asking for that because it's so influential and it's expensive, quite frankly. We love you, Kyle, but you're not cheap. To be able to at least get aid on it, knowing that it's for school safety and they can provide an educational program for our kids. So we're hopeful, and hopefully the state will make that a priority, knowing that the community demands that. So my ask would be if anybody is interested in wanting to lobbying and things like that, you've got a whole fact sheet that you could share those things. But that would be a nice ask. That would be incredibly helpful to a district our size for sure. Regional PD Day is going to be on March 14th, and we have our teachers and our paraprofessionals doing a variety of different things. One of the things we are doing collectively as a district of about 8 to 9:30 in the morning is we're doing a creatification training, and that's going to be a new one for us. That's what we're going to talk about if there was ever to be something that would happen here, whether incident, accident, be a variety of different things. How would we respond as the district to unify our students with their parents, especially if we had to take them off site And if you remember about 2 years ago, we actually had a chemical on site that needed to be removed, and that we almost thought we were gonna have to move our kids away. So I think it's a really good exercise. Everybody's gonna be involved in it. And then, the teachers are gonna go through a variety of different things. Yep, but the great part, and this is what I really like about the Regional Professional Development Day, our teachers will get an opportunity to interact with other teachers in the area. For example, music, all of our music teachers are gonna go to Cable Park, and they're gonna meet with all the music teachers in our area. So I just think it's a really great opportunity for them to get out and about and be with, similar-minded people. And then, if we could just come to some kind of agreement, just I wanna make sure on the change of the meeting. Are we going to cancel the 3:20 meeting? Is everybody comfortable with that? So it just wait until 4:03? Is everybody okay with that? Okay. Great. That's it for me.
Kayla?
Ayla, our basketball and volleyball star.
I just have a couple announcements about the sports and events that are upcoming. Unfortunately, our winter sports are coming to an end. But that does mean that our spring sports are in preparation, so that's exciting. The girls basketball Scholar Athlete Brunch is this Sunday. Track and field is going to states. I believe it's the 4x2 relay for boys and girls. 4x4, okay.
It's obvious.
4x4.
4x4. And their send off is tomorrow. The musical is happening. I think it's postponed to the 22nd. The tickets are $5.
I think it's gonna be, I think the audience will be full.
Yeah.
It's great.
And then the last update I have is the snowball. That is happening next Friday, the 14th.
Can you talk to us a little bit about colleges and careers? I know kids are starting to make their decisions.
Yes, so there was I believe there was a fair today for the
Trade school.
trade fair, yes, it was fair today. We do have an Instagram page that's being started for commitments for 2025. So I have not submitted one yet, but that is something that is on my checklist. I think it's Tamarack Commitments 25. I think that's the page of that. Tamarack Commitments 25.
And for those of you that weren't here a little while ago, check out the time sheet. It has a beautiful picture on the front, where she's showing great sportsmanship after, I think you were the one that knocked her down. I'm sure you did. It was a great play, but it's a really nice picture and it's a testament to really what's important. It's not wins and losses, it's about playing the game. So it was just a nice representation of the And I see Mrs. Honorato first, so I will turn her to Mrs. Out.
Yes, good evening, everybody. We are, of course, at a very busy time of year, very long month, a lot of internal preparations for activities that are coming up this spring, and also simultaneously looking ahead for next year planning in the building. Some parent announcements are starting to trickle out about upcoming events and things to start thinking about for the remainder of this year and beyond, one of which is our annual kindergarten parent information night. We hold that, historically we've held it, we will this year too, at the end of March every year, so Wednesday, March 26th. It will be our kindergarten parent information night for this year at 6:30 in the elementary cafeteria. And that's also a great opportunity to promote early registration, particularly for kindergarten, because that allows us to get the vast majority, if not all, which is always our hope, of children registered so they can get a screening slot to be screened before the end of this school year, which really helps us, of course, identify maybe some learning needs that went missed for some of our young students who haven't been to a school program yet, but it also helps us tremendously in balancing our classrooms. So if anyone asks, when is registration, it's now. It's never too soon. So we look forward to that. BEEP is underway. We had our second week of BEEP this week, actually tonight. It's happening every Thursday this year. It's a very well attended program this year. And Many thanks go to Christy Fortin, who's our beat coordinator, who works very hard throughout the beginning of the year to recruit parent, community partners and volunteers to run beat classes. We have a real range of classes this year, which again I think attracted a lot of student participation. There's a mock trial class. Ed Khan partners with us to offer a class. There's a party class where kids can learn about different celebrations and make various crafts related to different parties. I mean, it's really, there's something for everyone. So that's going very well. This week is National School Social Work Week. So in my newsletter this week, I'll be highlighting the work of school social workers. Ours in particular is Jessica Sokol, whose role I feel is valuable for our elementary students and families. And our school social workers provide direct support to students in certain areas, but they also work with families on a lot of outreach and support to make sure that they have what they need to support their students' education. So I just wanted to highlight that for everyone tonight. We will have another lockdown drill coming up, and I'll be announcing that to parents, which is required about a week prior. Parents will get notification that this is coming up. If all goes planned, this will likely be our last one for the school year. We have to do a minimum of 4. And fifth graders this week took their annual trip, which really has been a trip that's been in place for about 10 years, to the U.S. District Court in Albany. They learned a lot. They really get a lot out of this trip. It's one of our beloved traditional field trips that has a great curriculum tie-in for kids. And that's all. Thank you.
You know, Kelly mentions the long month of March, and with 20 years in education, that's what we all look at is, wow, March is a long one, no breaks. But we definitely have filled it up. We have a lot going on. Last week was our blood drive that the Key Club put on, and that was very successful. Dr. Maloney had to help out a little bit also.
I think we had 29 people come.
Great.
We met the goal, whatever the goal was.
It's great. And today, Kelly mentioned the Trades Fair. It's our 3rd annual Trades Fair that the Counseling Center puts on. And we had businesses from all around us in the community. And it's a great opportunity for the students to see what's out there for careers and for their future. The SAD is taking their 7th annual Summit field trip. That is coming up, I believe. Wait, no, that happened today. That happened today. And they get to collaborate with other area schools and meet other students and work on great decision making and healthy choices. We have the Harlem Wizards game coming up on the 11th. So that's going to be fun for everyone. That is 6 o'clock on March 11th. Our chorus concert, 6 to 12 chorus concert. The Snowball Dance is coming up on the 14th. National Junior Honor Society induction on the 19th. School musical. We have SAD Mental Health Day on the 22nd. We have an assembly with Jared Campbell, who is this incredibly well-renowned singer, artist. He's going to come in and do some work with the kids. And then we have 6 field trips coming up this month to a myriad of different places, from volunteering to roller skating and STEM challenges to all sorts of things. So we've got some great activities coming up for students.
I'm glad you said that. I just wanted to piggyback off that for a second. One of the challenges, which I think one of the field trips, is they're going down to Capitol Roots and they're helping establish the garden for the year, some give back time. And the STEM one, the 2 our 8th graders are actually going to go skating and learning various STEM principles, while having a great day doing that. So I think that's one of those lost things that kids don't do as much anymore. So I think that's really fantastic.
A lot going on.
Is that a new change to the NJSS? I remember that always being October, September, October.
So that I believe is for the freshmen that are being added to that list. This is for
Okay.
Yes. This is
Yeah,
yes.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't have anything from the special ed department because we've just been trying to get through all of our meetings, and we're also in the bulk of master scheduling, which is as we continuously have registrations pop up, that adds new little wrinkles. So we're just trying to figure out a good schedule and try to look at building our programs to be the most sustainable that we can. We've had some big changes in special ed, as there always will be year to year, but what programming we can have to be sustainable and not have to make as big jumps as we've made recently, would be really great. So we're just looking at how to make that happen.
And one last thing, I'm sure everybody has heard at this point, Mr. Rizzo is actually right now he's getting counted as the superintendent of Berlin Central School District, our neighbor, so he'll be my colleague at a different level, so we are very thankful for his years of service and really wish him well. But that means that we have to replace him, so the search has begun, everything is posted. Parents should have gotten a survey, at least the secondary parents should have gotten a survey, get it in mail. And the faculty staff got one, and eventually the students get one. That'll look for some potential questions, things that they want to see in the next leaders, priorities, things like that. We'll have a screening committee. They'll take all the applications and narrow those down, and then there'll be a committee that will be representative of parents, students, teachers, support staff, administrators, and then eventually that person will come to the Board of Education, one or two, and we will go from there, and that person will be so we're hopeful that we get a really competitive group. That would be great, except for the best.
So, Mr.
Just the secondary parents. Or is that, did I say? Secondary students, they'll get it. Yep, secondary students.
Okay, so, that brings us to special actions and calendar updates. Is that something we need to approve?
This is next year's calendar. Yep, you can approve people. This, I just want to mention, because we always get a lot of questions on this. We receive a lot of input. It's very important that our faculty and staff feel like it's a calendar that really meets their needs. And you'll see that there's a long winter break. Where is it again? Yep, a long winter break. It's just how the calendar happened to fall this particular year. And our traditional CODs that are built in as well. I think this one has 5. You'll notice that we've got 2 superintendent conference days a year. That's what our faculty thinks is useful. And again, when you go down to the end of the year, our last day of school for elementary schools is probably we're going to have that graduation as well, which is it's a similar type of year as it is this year. But we do model our calendar off of Questar, so if they have something quirky in their calendar, we tend to have something quirky on the calendar. Hopefully we don't change it, but things do come out throughout the years. Like as the regional schedules change, we sometimes have to amend it. But I wanted to get that out to parents right now so we can start to plan for vacations and things like that. Any questions on that?
So I need a motion to approve that. Jenna, Sammy, all in favor? Motion carries.
And there's just a small change to the region schedule of this year's calendar, and it's related to alternate regions assessments. So it's just like,
So we need to approve.
yes.
So motion to approve that, Kevin, Ryan, all in favor? Motion carries. Motion to put 7.1 on the table, policy. Kevin, Ryan, all, sorry, you want to discuss it all?
I don't have anything. This is the second reading. I don't have anybody.
Okay. All right, all in favor? Carries. Brings us to board discussion. Does anybody have any comments?
I would just echo the sentiment, the Harlem Wizards, the TSA is putting a lot of effort into that, so hopefully we can just encourage, share on social media.
How are things?
No, honestly, I don't know the answer to that. I got the sense it was a little slow at first, but sometimes people wait until the last minute, so we'll do our best to try to do that. I know, are any of you playing?
I'm not.
I know.
I will be there to watch.
They asked me to, and I
Oh,
said for a good reason I not. Nobody needs to
playing.
see
The
that.
teams were released today.
Are you playing?
He's playing.
It's gonna hard. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard for you to run up and down with that suit.
Why not?
The other thing I do want to mention, I talked a lot about advocacy, and after we got Mike Bloss's presentation, I think it was really, I hope it was clear to you, as it is to me, that there's some areas of the state that get a lot more attention than others, and it's really not fair, but it's really where the influence is. So I want to encourage you to be a part of going to the School Boards Association, going to those legislative trainings and those kind of things, because really, he talked a little bit about Long Island and the things that Long Island gets to do, because they band together and they're loud and they let their voices be heard. And I think that was just my take on it. I don't know, Jack, you want to add into that?
yeah, I would certainly, I attended many trainings, I've attended several conferences. And, you know, it's a couple of days out of your own work schedule. But I find the annual conference.
And there's a lot of movement and shaking, you know, as if the federal government does disband the Department of Education, what does that look like for states? What does that look like for governance teams? What now are you going to have a different authority that you didn't have before? So I think those are things to be thinking about. For sure.
Yeah, they do a good job of trying to include everyone in it. Anybody have anything else? No, I'll just say, I think when we come back next month on the 3rd, you know, personally, I think there's two ways to solve the budget crisis. You know, there might be a few more dollars in cuts, but I don't think we're going to find a lot of savings. So I think we have to either decide to use $1.3 million in fund balance, which would lower us down over $1 million in reserves, or if we think we can raise the cap enough, use a little bit more fund balance, you know, not just use round numbers, try and keep $1 million in reserves, figure out what that number will be, and decide if we think we can get that to be supported by 60%. You know, I think that'll be the focus on our next meeting, but you know, I just wanted to put that out there because I don't think there's a lot of other choices at this point.
No, so, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
for big numbers,
Yeah.
you're not gonna find 300.
Now
Not
without
without it.
changing the program.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
If
yes,
people,
that's right.
Yeah, there you go.
like if you want to keep the program as it is now, that would be,
Which I think,
yes, that would be the choices. The other thing I might encourage you to do, and I can dig this up as well, you might remember that we had Bernie Donegan do several presentations in 5-year long-range financial planning. As you're thinking about these decisions, it might be a good idea for you to find that and just put that up just so you're well equipped. You know, Stephanie's responsibility is to give you her financial opinion. Mine is to give you my academic, which is why I said the requests, those were legit. And if I had the money, they would be in that budget. There's no question about it. So just to let you know, and then really you're the community you represent. What do our parents want? What do they feel is best for their kids? And what does that look like? And how do we get there? And that's really the decision, I think.
Okay, great. That brings us to special ed. A motion to put that on the table. Kevin, Dina, all in favor? Motion carries. 10.1 is curriculum. Motion to put that on the table. Danielle, Leah,
This is just it's a curriculum tool for our foreign language Spanish class that was discussed in curriculum assessment.
all in favor? Motion carries. Let's do 11.1 through 11.9 on consent. Put that on the table. Kevin, Dina. Discussion.
I just want to mention a couple things. First of all, some of these are positions within musical. Musical is so incredibly complex. There's so many different pieces and parts. But we have state-of-the-art sound system, state-of-the-art lighting, and to be able to see a full play with kids, seniors, it's gonna be absolutely fantastic. That's number one. I also need to give a shout out to Donna Van Zandt. Donna is such a wonderful human. She's pinched hit in like any area and like fill feature gaps. And she does it with just the most optimistic attitude. It's really appreciated because the kids know her. She knows our school, so it's not a funky fit. And she's jumping in, and we just have this weird transition. So I just wanted to publicly thank her for just being so incredibly flexible.
All in favor? Motion carries. Brings us to business recommendations, 12.1 through 12.5. Motion put that on the table. Tammy, Danielle,
Just a couple things. This under 12.1 financial reports, some of the questions that were coming up today, sometimes you can see it in the financial reports. Budget transfers, when we have to have emergency expense, things like that, profits and loss, that's much, I think. A budget transfer report, you heard Stephanie talk about budget transfers. Those are the things you can find on there. They are complicated documents. We're not all accountants. So if you go through there and you don't know what they mean, they're on every month, please just ask because we're happy. That can kind of give you a temperature check if, you know, a bill was unexpectedly high or something happened, you can start to see some of those changes. The other thing I want to note, these were two of the emergency purchases that I will have our architects speak to at the next meeting. This is the emergency tank repair, that's for, 51,516 for, Delaware Engineering, they're the company that has, thank you, what did I say? Oh, I don't know what I said.
Oh, it's just tank services, that's what you said.
Okay. They're the company that comes in and makes sure that our wastewater treatment plant, which are only like one of a handful of districts in New York State that have one, but just to make sure the bacteria and all the things are working the way that they're supposed to. And they were working to get it pumped out when part of it went down and failed. And then elevators that travel for a little while had repair on that. That's 84,38 as identified there. So those were two of the things that we had talked about a little bit earlier today. I would say 5-ish. I 5 or 6, and there are professional musicians that come and play. Some years, just depending on the kids. Part of the issue is some of our musicians are in the play, so they can't be two places at once. So.
All in favor? Motion carries. That brings us to public comment.
Eric Goldman?
Hi, everybody. I just sort of public comment just popped into my head about 5 seconds ago. I just told Marty, said, can you let me speak? And it's budget related. It's interesting because I started coming to board meetings in probably 2010. We had a 0% tax increase. At one point, they were going to cut 30 teachers. It was a mess for a while there after the 2008 financial crisis, all that. That's when I started going. I think I've missed one board meeting in the last, whatever that is, 15 years. But I get quiet around budget time, and I'm able to get quiet because I think Stephanie does a good job. She's mindful of, and Angelina, they have that good balance of trying to keep our programs, taxes, and I think the school board's very thoughtful about it. So I appreciate that. So I'm not being critical here at all. But I am confused about something, and I'll tell you what. I went to a NYSEG conference recently, and it's a NYSEG President's Conference, and they always go through like a legislative update. They talk about budget stuff, and usually when we get to the budget, they talk about like the executive budget. It's a nightmare. They're like, oh my gosh, it's doomsday and all that. And I was interested because things seem so bad this year, in particular. But when the NYSEG legislative guy got to the budget, he was like, we don't have to talk about it this year. It's fantastic. I never heard that before. But I'm looking at Tim, the co-president, going like, what is that? So I stood up and I went up to our NYSEG LRS and I was like, gosh, like it seems terrible at my school. And our NYSEG LRS was like, why? You got a 5.5% increase in state aid. Now, I don't know what our state aid increase was last year. I think it was like 2.5 or something like that. So I'm just, is it possible to put in a nutshell? What is going on? Well, we've got such a large state aid increase. We've got that one slide number 5 has that 7, whatever that number is, that 7 point. And I know, Jack, you were just asking about it. And I know I can't go through a whole financial course here, and I don't know if I'm even quick enough to pick up on it all. But what does that mean? Why is that number so big? I understand it has something to do with debt service, capital project. And it says it's going to be paid with revenue, which to me means we have a debt that needs to be paid off with taxes right now, and that's being worked into our budget. Is that what the nutshell is? Like that's the one thing that says the reason why this is so high is because of that debt service. So is that it?
Well, so there's a lot of pieces that have led to a high increase in budget. So I think the biggest one is that health insurance.
Yeah.
That health insurance increase eats up our increase in taxes and our increase in state aid.
So I guess why I'm surprised that is that you're right, 16%, the Blue
That's
Shield
massive.
is ridiculous, right? But like last year it was 10 or 9 or something like that. Like it wasn't
So
that
you also have
far
to remember
off.
we added those COVID positions
Yeah.
that were paid out of COVID funds. Those are in the general fund.
Yeah.
We've added a myriad of things. I've had them in
Right.
previous presentations that we added that were never budgeted for. So those are now all added in there.
Do you remember what our state increase was last year?
I believe we were hold harmless last year. And we did none.
There was no state, there was
We were
no
whole
state,
harmless last year.
okay,
So that revenue was steady,
it was
Whole
steady.
but the expenses went up.
Right,
and
but
then-
this year we have an increase of 5.5%, I guess is what,
Which is about 409,000. So it sounds like
Right.
a lot, but
Yeah.
that's not a lot of money.
right,
I think that's part of the splash, Eric, in my opinion, because when you look, even when the governor presented it, I think that number looks really massive, but there's certain things that are outpacing others. So
Right.
our ability to levy taxes, which is where a bulk of our stuff comes from, we don't have Walmart coming in or any of those kind of things, so that if, the state aid being flat or fixed or whatever, how we levy the taxes is really our only way to get additional money. And we can't tax our folks, nor should we, we're clear about that.
Right.
At a pace that competes with the rising costs of things. We didn't talk about this today, but I'll say it. I am really nervous about the tariffs. I don't know what that's going to mean. It's just an uncertain thing, and my job is to be conservative, just to try to plan for those kind of things, even with energy costs. So it's not answering your question, but I think it's just.
no, it all
kind of
is,
accurate.
it's just, I guess the 5% number is there, right, that's, it's 400,000. I was more surprised at the reaction of everybody at this conference, everybody else was going like, oh, first time ever, the budget hasn't been a nightmare. I'm going like, oh, it seems like more of a nightmare ever in our district, and I just don't understand what's different about us than other places.
And
I'm
also,
sure
we're
that-
not alone though. In our BOCES, there's
Yeah.
a number of other districts that are in the same boat as us.
Right,
So this isn't just an us thing.
It might be
Yeah.
regional, I'm not sure.
I don't know, yeah, I don't know, I mean, this was just capital
It
district,
does
but,
seem like the city school districts are making out a little bit better now, where in the past they were in dire straits.
Right.
Some of the bigger ones, but I know some of the rural folks, because our expenses, meaning heating a building, educating kids, those are all the same, even though the population might be shifting a little bit. It's certainly interesting time.
And
So
it's interesting, the gentleman we were just talking to, kind of said the complete opposite of what you just said, how everyone was on the district he's working with, are saying how tight it is. So it's interesting to hear you say that and say completely opposite.
Yes, what they told us.
But to Eric's point, I wasn't gonna mention this, but one of the things that Stephanie and I was we'll have meetings for the faculty and staff to come and just dig into questions like that afterwards and try to explain pieces. Because if you read a headline, things look great, but you really have to say, oh, this amount of money is escalated this much, and we want to pay our employees well, we want the best here. And those are the kind of balances that we have to find. But it's really tricky. And I also think that there's less wiggle room. So there'd be times where we might put in, for example, like 2 or 3 extra special education placements in, like money for them, I should say, in case one came in. Now we're whittling that down. We're being less, we're being more risky, less conservative, if that makes sense, to make the budget fit. But what that means is if somebody comes in, then you might have to dig in. Does that make sense to everybody? So those things are gotten to look.
well, I'll just finish by saying at some point Stephanie may come to you, ask you to try and explain that whole debt service.
Sure,
That's it's
yeah.
a big number. I don't get, I always thought that when we have a capital project, a lot of it's state aidable, and then we work some of it into the,
We also remember this project is not tax neutral,
right.
this upcoming project.
So this is, you're talking, this is the debt
debt
service
for the
on the project
coming
that's
onto the
coming?
books for this next project,
Gotcha.
yes.
Okay, maybe that's not up.
And this is the first one we've done in my time, has not been taxed.
Gotcha,
So normally we plan a project where one debt falls off from one, we pick one right up, so
Sure.
people see it steady, but this one's
This
gonna
one's
go
not.
here.
okay, that
So-
might be my answer.
It's part of it.
Yeah, perfect, okay, thank you.
Denise? Hi, Janine Cascount, 516 Hamrick Road. I wasn't gonna speak, but since Mr. Olson decided to talk about the budget, I was gonna ask a question about the budget as well, if that's okay. He was much more prepared than I was, because he knows slide numbers and I don't. But there's a slide that you had that showed, services in red that that were potential line items, but in budget version 3 got cut, and then the ones on the bottom that were still there. I was just wondering about your like decision tree or rationale for what got chosen and what didn't, or the thought process through that.
About this one? So
Yes.
these ones in red, these are things that were either requests from faculty, staff, or administration, because I directed them, give me what you would want in a perfect world. But given our gap of $1 million plus, we weren't able to add that because that would continue to increase the debt even more than we already have it. But I wanted the board to be able to see, these are things that our folks are asking for, they think that we need, so that they can make the decision to incorporate them in. But right now, we don't currently have them, and we're not adding them in. So it's not getting rid of something we have, but in a perfect world, we would add them.
Okay. So, yeah, I was just looking at how the middle school, high school summer tutor program is staying, but or is it got chosen or is still in the line
So
item
I can talk about
versus
that.
something else?
Yep. So the middle school, we started a comprehensive tutoring program with COVID funds, and we've been able to have that over the years. But part of that was our credit recovery, for lack of a better term, for the kids that need credit recovery to graduate from high school. And we, as an administrative team, and then I presented it to the board, has decided that's a priority because we cut that. That's a small part of what we used to do, but we feel that's so pivotal that our graduation rate would plummet and kids would be taking classes. So right now that continues to be a priority. And that's for a student that may have gotten maybe a 60 in algebra that they need to graduate. If they take it over the summer through this program, they can then be back on track with their class, and the chances of them dropping out is going to be significantly less. Does that make sense?
It does, absolutely, and I appreciate that explanation.
Yep. In a perfect world, we would have all these and more. No doubt about it.
That's it? So, we're gonna go to executive session.
I just
Personnel
had
issues?
one quick thing.
Sure.
We get a social media push out about keyword registration.
I believe I saw Laura having it, so if it's not already scheduled, it might already be out there. So yeah, yep. But I would say this, and I'll say this to the live camera as well. Anyone, if you have a 3-year-old, 2-year-old, whatever, you can call our registration office and say, I have a child that's going on the state, because then you'll actually get a reminder. So if you have somebody with a toddler, even though they're not kindergarten or preschool age yet, that's okay, they can still register with us.
So that might even be simple to add to the social media, like,
Did you know?
you can register your 2-year-old for a reminder when they are eligible for kindergarten.
Yep.
Because I had no idea that that's
Yep.
the thing.
I believe so, yes. Yep, we're still. Do you want to continue talking about having audit finance to continue to talk about some of the, or do you want to wait? UBK. So we'll still go through with that process right now. We're planning for 3 classes. New changes been made to that. We have to go through the RFP process, which I know we've talked about, which I have an obligation to send out a request for proposals for a handful of local districts. You'd like to keep them in-house, I'll say it like that, because I feel like that would be the best program, but we do have an obligation to keep those up. So
Those are just.
that's correct. Yep. Within a certain geographic area is defined by some New York State agency. I can't remember.
I don't want to misspeak, but I'll say my understanding is that we have to put out this RFP, and I believe it has to go to any eligible, like, community-based organization, preschool within our district boundaries. But I also think it's okay,
It's okay.
from my understanding, for districts to go outside. I don't know that we go beyond the
Yeah, I
boundaries.
can't.
But it's not required.
That's my
Yeah,
understanding.
I would prefer not to.
Okay.
I would too. I just didn't want to misspeak because I'm not.
Yeah, feel free to fact check me on that, but that's my understanding.
I was gonna ask you to fact check. Okay,
So executive for personnel.
so we need a motion. Jenna, Tammy, all in favor? Thank you all for coming.
Thanks, everybody. Don't forget to use the camera.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry about that. It's only September, October.
Yeah,
So I was just like,
no, I'm
I
happy
didn't
you
know
said
if they just
something.
changed it.
Yeah.
Just did it.
Yeah,
So-
no, I'm happy you said something.
Thank you. And I said, "Hey, that was good." Recording the trips are understanding.
Yeah.
Love that thing.
Love it. It's a real, I mean, it's a highly educational trip that really students and teachers and chaperones all love it. They get to.
I remember he came over the hat. What about if he asked him some questions? It might have been about the Constitution. I'm not sure. but
Okay.
He got it right, so they gave him.
They
So
actually
what
got
about
to
that?
see a live person.
So I'm sort of apologizing.